What we'll do today is just kind of review the vocabulary terms that you were responsible for today and show you exactly kind of how they're used. A space is basically considered to be where you'd find any of these points. Um, if you think of it kind of like in terms of what is outer space like, it's just all this room is space. Okay. Um, Anytime you have open space, that's also space. I mean, it's a concept that you either understand or maybe you're on a different planet. Maybe you're in outer space somewhere. A point is an exact location in space. Okay? A location in space. So, to indicate a point, that's exactly what you use, is a point. And they're usually labeled with capital letter. You've heard the expression, from point A to point B. Okay? Those points are labeled. It's a specific point that you're referring to, and you need to label them with a capital letter. Okay? Any questions on what a point is? A location in space. Okay? Now the plane is a little bit more specific. And they show you the picture on page 354. It's a collection of points that forms a flat, continuous, and unending surface. Okay? It's kind of like a two-dimensional space. It occupies two dimensions in your space. If that makes any sense at all. Okay. Usually, when we talk about a plane, we talk about different things that are in that plane. Segments that are in that plane. Points that are in that plane. Okay. Segments, points, lines can lie in different planes. That's usually when you have three dimensions. But as for right now, that's not going to concern us so much right now. An angle, however, an angle consists of two rays. What's a ray? A ray is kind of half line, half segment. The arrow tells us that it extends in that direction without end forever and ever and ever. When have you heard the expression ray? Like a ray of light. Okay? That ray of light had a source. Whether it was a flashlight from where that light came from and shoots out, a ray of sunshine, right? The source is the sun and it shoots down. Okay? This is a ray. Here's the source, goes this way. Now an angle then are two rays that share that common endpoint. Now we speak of angles, we also want to identify this as the what? As the vertex, okay? So when you see angles, most of the time, the angles will also have, what do we call those? Capital letters? Points. Also have points on them. So we can easily label them. To label an angle, you use this little angle symbol. And there's basically two ways we can label this. We can label it angle A, B, C, or I could label it C, B, A. What's the constant? What stays the same? What in my two angle labels stays the same? Yes? Yeah, that always comes first. Yes. B. B is always in the middle. B also happens to be my vertex. So you always want to make sure that when you label an angle, that the vertex is your middle letter. Now, sometimes people would label it just angle B, Sometimes that works if that's the only angle that comes from the vertex B. I would say, to be specific, use the 3 letters to label that angle. Okay. A couple other things that we probably should add that weren't added. So you want to get these in your notes. A line. A line is a collection of points that extend in opposite directions without end. How do you know they extend without end? The arrows, very good. So to label a line, lines will also have points on them. For example, you see X, you see Y. To label this line, I can label it line XY or YX. Either way, I'm still talking about the same line. Okay? If I were to add another point on this line, I still only label it with 2 letters. So I could call this line XZ. I could call it line ZY. Okay? I'd still be talking about this same line up here. Just because I didn't include one of these in blue doesn't mean I'm not talking about that same line. I picked 2 of the letters that are on the same line, and I put a little mini arrow on the top of it to label it. All right, any questions on that? From this, we can also get a segment. If you saw a segment of a show, what did you see? Yeah, part. So a segment is it's a part of a line. It doesn't extend in opposite directions with end. It's I pull a part out of it. So if I want to talk about segment XZ, I label it with a segment bar without the arrows. Now I'm specifically talking about from there to there. I'm talking about that part of the line, just that segment. If I want to talk about segment ZY, then I'm talking about just that part from Z to Y. Always, again, 2 letters. 3 letters to label what? 3 letters label oh my god. Because I raised my voice at you, now you just tuned me out. Is that why? Well, I can raise my voice all day long. I'll teach like that if you want. 3 letters we use to label what? Look in your notes. Angles. 2 letters we use to label lines or segments. 1 letter we use to label what? Point. Good. Interior of the angle. Let's go back to this angle. When they talk about the interior of the angle, that's what they're talking about, of the angle. Have we talked about angles in here yet? I don't think so. Did we use protractors in here yet? I don't think so. Does anyone know what a 90-degree angle is? Anyone know what a 90-degree angle is? Yes? If you had to pick a letter from the alphabet that would look like a 90-degree angle, what would it be? An L. So a 90-degree angle looks like this. Well, why do they call it a 90-degree angle? Because that's what it measures. If we were to take a protractor and look at it and say, this one's almost 90. This is almost 90 degrees. Okay, almost. Close enough, right? So it's almost 90 degrees. So any angle that would measure inside of this right angle is called an acute angle. an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. Anything that would be greater is called an obtuse angle. Greater than 90, we could also say less than 180. 180 is this. What are we doing here? That would be a straight line. Okay. So we get to these different types of angles and they measure a certain way. What are we measuring? We're measuring the interior of the angle right here. That's what we're measuring. So this is when we talk about degrees, and you'll work with a protractor. I'm not going to go through a 20-minute lesson on how to use the protractor because you don't have one in front of you. But this is what we're talking about. This is what's being measured. You measure the interior of the angle. Okay? So that's just a crash course on what it is that you're measuring. What else is there? Lines, parallel lines. Parallel lines, if exactly parallel, would never intersect. Okay? They would never intersect. If I were to give these lines points, so I can give them names, there's a label I can use to show that two lines are parallel. I would say line LM is parallel to line PQ. Some of you are going to crash and burn on this assignment. I can just tell. So you're not writing this stuff down. I didn't say all of you, did I? Did I say all of you? Oh, well, then maybe I wasn't talking about you if you were taking the notes. Parallel. They would never cross. Now, that's the opposite of perpendicular. Not only do perpendicular lines intersect, but when they intersect, where do they intersect? They intersect right there. And because the result of their intersection, it forms a right angle. We talked about that letter L. In this particular case, does it form one right angle? There's another one there. Another one there. Another one there. How many right angles are there? 4. 4 times 90 is what? 360. Did we go in a 360? Yeah. Yes. That's the way the book decides to do it. You're saying I'm wrong? Now, we can also say that line AC, there's a symbol that we use to show that they're perpendicular, and it's this, would be perpendicular to line EG. So parallel are the two straight lines vertically right next to each other. Perpendicular would show that they would form to make right angles. Okay? Guided practice. Number 1. They want us to draw line CD. They want us to draw a line, and they want us to label it so that the label would be CD. Yeah? She needs more time. Sure. Okay, so what do we need to do? Liam. Like this. How's that? Does that work? Perfect. Line CD. There it is. Number 2, vertex R. Jesse. I gotta do what? Array. Am I gonna make an angle? And I'm making vertex R. So where do I put R? There it is, vertex R. Do I have to put points anywhere else? Nope. I just want to show that I can label a vertex with R. Segment PQ. Carlos. Careful. Well, let's not draw a line. If I'm going to draw a segment, let's not draw a line. Just draw a segment. All right. Well, when you say line, now we have to assume that you're saying line. So segment with P on one side and Q on the other. There's segment PQ. Try number 4. Show me that line AB is parallel to line CD. Worksheet 14.1, 1 through 18. And you've got the vocab for 14.2, and you'll have the quiz for 14.2. The quiz will be very similar to how we did the quiz today. So know your definitions. Okay?